Everyone, grab a seat if you don't have one already, please. So next up, so a lot of people here included have been talking about app installs and getting users for your app. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. But we talk less about what you do with the app installs you've already gotten and how to make the most of those users. So here to talk about that are Robbie and John. Please put your hands together.
Much enough for that. Okay. Hi, I'm John Ketchpaw. I'm one of the lead engineers on mobile app ads.
And I'm Robbie Banks, the business analyst on mobile app ads.
Oh, I didn't click it.
Oops. So I'd like to start by talking about why you all should be using engagement ads as part of your marketing mix. So we all know this. App usage has become the dominant user behavior on mobile devices. In the US, 86% of all time spent occurs in mobile apps. As a result, the first major challenge that developers faced was in driving app installs. But there's a second major challenge, and it's being driven by the finite amount of time that users have in mobile apps. The average user has 41 apps on their mobile phone. As a result of this, 66% of all apps get used less than 10 times. For all of you gaming developers out there, you probably already know this stat, but 66% of all free-to-play games are used for less than 24 hours. So why should you use engagement ads? You should use engagement ads because in a time of increasing demands on users' time and attention, you need to be able to cut through the clutter on users' phones with a clear strategy of how to drive incremental profitability. So I want to run you through a few scenarios. Number one, a user has spent over $1,000 on his app, and he suddenly stops using it. Number two, a user in your e-commerce app has 10 high-priced items in his basket, and he never completed his order. Scenario number three, a user in your mobile banking app has not used your cool new in-app feature. And number four, a user has searched for a flight, but he never booked his itinerary. Now, up until this point, you didn't have a great paid channel for overcoming each of these challenges. And that's where mobile app engagement ads comes in. There are a number of reasons why you might want to use engagement ads, and I've called out three in particular behind me. One of the most important is retaining your highest LTV users. So we all know this is important. For lots of different verticals, a small percentage of users makes up a large percentage of your overall revenue. If those users churn, you want to try them, you bring them back in. And you can do that with re-engagement ads. A second major reason why you might want to use engagement ads is to increase your conversion rates. For instance, if you have users who showed intent but never took an action that you wanted them to take, why not retarget them? It's another great use case for re-engagement ads. And a third major reason you might want to use engagement ads is to increase user retention. Let's say you have a new feature, and you believe that's correlated with increased user satisfaction and increased user retention. Then why not using engagement ads to bring existing users back into your app to drive awareness and adoption of this new feature? These are just three of the many reasons you should use engagement ads. And I'd like to dive into a little more detail on these three right now. So one of the most important is retaining your highest LTV users. I'm sure a lot of you already know this stat, but for free-to-play games, less than 1% of users make up 50% of in-app purchases. That makes these users incredibly important. So in this case, as John's going to talk about in a little bit, If you give us app events, we give you back a really cool graph. Along the x-axis, it has user percentile. And along the y-axis, it has the average spend for that user percentile. And we make it really easy for you to target just those high-value users. So what you do is you take a slider, you select the user percentiles that you want to target, and then you put in a bid, and we take it from there. It's incredibly easy. And this is a great way to not spend a lot of money and get great ROI in return. A second major reason you might want to use engagement is retargeting. We're all familiar with retargeting from the web, and that's where a user shows a strong signal of intent, and you want to remind them or incentivize them to take an action, like making a purchase. It's a highly effective strategy because the user has already shown a strong signal of intent, and we can use messaging that matches that intent. It's highly effective on desktop. We all know that. And we're excited to bring the same functionality to mobile. A third major reason you might want to use engagement ads is for increasing user retention. Let's say you have a new feature, and you believe that new feature is correlated with increased user retention. Why not use engagement ads to drive awareness and to drive adoption of that new feature? If, for instance, you're a financial services app, and you have a new feature that allows your customers to upload checks from the mobile device, why not drive awareness and adoption of that through engagement ads? These are just 3 of the many reasons that you should be using engagement ads. So far, we've seen great results from the early adopters of engagement ads. YPlan, for instance, used engagement ads to bring existing users back into their app to buy tickets and saw a 215% ROI. Mobile also used engagement ads to bring existing users back into their app and drove 16% of total iOS subscriptions from engagement ads. Finally, Idle Games also used a combination of desktop engagement ads and mobile engagement ads to bring users back into the Fresh Deck game and was able to drive 525% ROI. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to John.
Yeah. How do you do this well? You want to set yourself up for success, basically. The first thing you want to think about is deep linking. If you're a game developer, it might be that all you want to do is have your players come back and start playing again. But it is probably more interesting if you can give them an incentive to do so. If you're targeting people that are stuck on a level, you might want to give them a boost so that they can actually get past that point of frustration that they have. If you're an e-commerce app, like Hotel Tonight here, you want to take people directly from your ad into the place in your app where the conversion is going to happen. And so here's a little sort of little thought experiment. So without deep links, someone's going to see your ad, they're going to open your app. At this point, they have to remember why they tapped. Maybe they'll start typing in, and they'll type out, start typing in San Francisco, and they'll fat finger it, and then they'll just give up and go away. A certain number of people will get past that and see the results, and a smaller percentage will actually buy the tickets. Okay. With a deep link, it's a lot more like the web, right? We can go from the ad directly to the results page of what you want, and not only because you have fewer steps, you also have lower user fatigue. You have a lot more opportunity to increase the number of people that are going to take the action you want downstream. So you guys have heard today about app links. We're hoping this will help build an ecosystem around deep linking. And I'll show in a minute a small piece that we hadn't mentioned before about the bolts framework that you can use to parse these URLs yourself, or you can use the larger infrastructure we provide to do a lot of the work for you. And as you've heard, it's open source, it's easy, it's awesome. The next thing you need to be able to do is segment. If you just target everyone that's using your app, you're going to get everyone who uses your app, and that isn't very directed. If you want to work with your large spenders, you want to send to Facebook the information about who those people are. And so we have a system called app events, and we have a set of 14 default actions that you can create as many as you want for your own app, but we have a few that are set up for these particular scenarios. So large spenders, we have an event called purchase. So whenever someone spends money, it's built just for that, and it takes care of a bunch of, has built into it a bunch of things with currency and so forth. If you're a game and you're interested on people that reached level 2 and got stuck, we have an achieved level. If you're just looking to talk about different types of active users, we have a baseline that I hope everyone here integrates with because it's one line of code, and that's the activated app. And from that, we can do a lot of things. And so we can take the people you know and combine it with Facebook to get the people you know on Facebook. And you can do this, like I was just saying, with app events, but I should also make sure to point out that you can do this by uploading device identifiers, like the IDFA from Apple or Google's Android Advertising ID. You can do this with emails, and we can do this with a variety of other tokens, and we'll match that up with what we have in the back end to find that set of people. So I'm going to do some code. Is my screen up there? OK. So show you how easy this really is. This is the sort of default sample app from Apple. And the first thing we want to do is we want to go down to our application did become active selector and add these 2 lines. If you do nothing else, do this. Every time a user opens the app, it's going to hit this code, and it's going to send a little ping to us that tells us exactly that. And we're going to be able to track users based on, break it down for you of when they use your app and how often. Whoa. Wow, Xcode's gone. Bear with me a second. The next thing I want to show you is how simple it is to deal with deep links. OK. All right, I might have to just talk as if it's on screen. Oh, OK. Here we go. The app delegate file went away. I'm not sure what happened there. So I'm just gonna hang out here in my view controller. Anyway, let's pretend that this is the Openurl selector. So what comes in the URL parameter is an NS URL, and Apple doesn't give you a lot to work with to actually tease these things apart. And we've already seen examples of companies in the field. All right. I'm gonna bring it back to my text editor, and we're just going to talk about this code. What I wanted to say is that don't try to parse URLs yourself. Don't write regular expressions. Don't use string split. You're going to run it, it'll seem to work great at first, but you're going to run into a lot of trouble very, very quickly, right? There are things that are fun, in theory easy, like URL encoding, but there's a lot of edge cases that you don't want to think about, and frankly, it's just kind of boring. It's not really all that interesting work. So with the Boltz framework, we have a class you can use called BFURL, which can be used to tease apart these URLs on iOS. The story is a little bit better on Android, just because Google's libraries provide more for you. So anyway, let's talk about logging a purchase. So you can use app events to log whatever data you want, and you don't have to have upfront a schema or a set of events that you know you want to log. Just start logging them, and they'll start showing up. We give you a little help for purchase events, in that when you log a purchase, you can specify a numeric value, the currency it's in, and that'll help us actually correlate things across different currencies. Like, we'll take care of, you don't have to think about like what the conversion rates and things like that are. For any of these events, you can always add a stack of parameters of whatever you feel like. And so the joke I was going to tell is that I was going to put this in the view controller, and the moment it loads, we're going to charge these people $1. So these people are impulse buyers. And I'll come back to that in a second. So anyway, what does this get you on the website? So I'm logging purchases, and in the past 28 days, I have 30 billion in mobile purchases. That's fantastic. Feeling pretty happy about that. Let's see how things break down over time. All right. Oh. Okay, it's a rough day. I don't know. Okay. All right. I'm going to skip past that. Oh. Can I do anything? No, I'm connected to the internet. I just don't know, everything is just crashing on me, and I'm not sure what's going on. Okay. So am I just out of space? I'm out of space. That's fantastic. Okay. So what I wanted to show you, I was going to show you a few things. I'm just going to talk about them for a minute. And we do have a video of a piece of that we'll switch to in a minute. What I wanted to talk about is I was going to dig into who my purchasers are, and a lot of people who have apps actually have no idea who their people are and who the different people are that are doing different things in their apps. So one thing that I was about to learn in my app is that the vast majority of people who make purchases are women. That's huge. That's a huge piece of data that I might not otherwise have. I was also going to find out that almost all of these people were in the USA and Canada, but there seemed to be a growing contingent in Spain. And maybe there's an opportunity there to really go after a new market and really grow the app with new installs, or really try and engage those people and get more spend out of them. So when we create these, we have a thing called custom audiences for mobile apps. And for all of these events that we can log, we let you describe a rule set of who you'd like to match. So for the purchasers, what I can do is I can say, I'm interested in people who have used the app and have spent more than $1 in the past week. And what we'll do automatically is, as time moves forward, we will always keep that up to date as a rolling window of time. So you don't have to continually re-upload the people who are taking actions in your app, and more importantly, you don't have to figure out how to remove people who have now fallen out of your criteria. Because that turns into a pretty complex data management problem, and you'll end up building a lot of infrastructure yourself to do it. It's easier when it's on screen. Okay. Do we have the video of the create flow? Kevin's going to come up and play that, and I'll talk over that in a second. Oh, you have it on your screen? Oh, thanks, Kevin. So I can actually show you this stuff now.
Come on, guys.
Oh, man. I prepared, I made sure everything was ready, and I didn't check my hard drive space. The only thing. Okay. It's on. It's not, you're not duplicating your screen. You got it. We'll work it out. We'll work it out. I've been through worse already. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Don't worry about it. I'll Okay. All right, I'm gonna jump back past some of the stuff I had just talked about. So you might have seen this earlier if you came to the install talk. And it really is this simple that you can just create a custom audience. Why, yes, I have. So, and what we'll do is we'll give you a slider so that you can work through what are the people that are interesting to you. So it can be a little, you'll notice it can be a little chunky if you're talking about active users. It's often more interesting if you want to do value, right? Because that's probably what you're really interested in, and it's sort of it often is a little smoother and easier to kind of understand. And as you move this, you can see that we'll update automatically and show you how much of the value we're talking about. And then once we tap Create Audience, it's going to basically in real time start creating that audience. It'll take maybe 10 or 15 minutes before it's ready to deliver ads, but then it's going to actually update as people use your app. The audience itself will stay up to date within minutes, right? So if you're really, really savvy, someone can take an action in your app, and you could reach them with an ad maybe 10 or 15 minutes later. And there are probably some scenarios you can think of where like really, really fast response can have a huge impact. So the other thing I wanted to show you is that when we do is how you can add a parameter here. So I created when I was logging that event earlier before everything fell apart, I called those people impulse buyers. And so you can see we have a few things that are standard, but any of those keys that I had created will just start showing up here because there is data that uses it. And so for the customer segment, I can just start typing impulse buyer. Whoops. And we have the chance to do a variety of comparisons. Because it's a string, we can do the contain substring, does not contain. And you can do other things like you can say is any of. So I could say is any of an impulse. Well, I'll have to do that again. Impulse buyer, and they are also a thought leader. Whatever it is that you find interesting, go for it. You can really and you can really find a lot of power here. Okay, so let's show you how you can actually create one of these ads. This is the ads creation interface. And there's a set of different objectives you can do here. I don't know how many of you have seen this before. There's one down here at the bottom, the one we're talking about, which is app engagement. And we are going to go into my awesome test app. So, like usual, you need to pick some creative. We're pretty happy today. And the first thing I'll point out is that you do have the option to launch your app without a deep link. Right? You're going to do a lot better if you do specify one. But if you don't have one, or you haven't really gotten this far, and you just want to bring people back in, you can. And on Android, we rely on the configuration you've provided on the developer page of what intent you want us to launch. And on iOS, because there isn't really any way around the fact that URLs are the way to launch apps, we'll take the assumption that you have integrated the Facebook SDK and you've added the FB 12345 URL scheme. If you haven't done either of these, what will happen when the user taps the app is that they're going to go to the app store. But then they can tap open and go to your app. And that's an extra step, and you're going to lose performance along the way. So I encourage you to make sure that you've invested here. But you're not totally hosed if you haven't. Or if you have a version in the field that hasn't dealt with this, we're still going to be able to open it one way or another. So a deep link is just like you might think. Awesome : / funny stuff, whatever. And I'm going to, token. It's whatever you want it to be. We don't want to force any structure on you. If you are using app links, we will provide structure for you, and we will add it as an additional parameter, additional query parameter. But we will leave whatever query parameters you've put into the URL unadulterated. But again, don't try and parse it yourself. And importantly, always anticipate that you might be receiving URLs you haven't tested before. So think of the conditions where a key that you were looking for might not be present, and have a code path that falls back gracefully rather than falling apart and crashing. Because if you end up in a corner and you end up crashing your users, you're going to have very much the opposite effect of what you intended with buying your ad. A couple other things we get to do. We can choose a call to action. So my awesome test app, I happen to know that this piece of content I'm going to show them is a video. So I'm going to choose the watch video, and I'm going to say, this video is hilarious. And this is really valuable for setting expectations, right? And really helping get people past and directed towards what you want them to do. So here we go. Here is where we get to choose our custom audience. And this account has a whole bunch, but we'll say, the people who have purchased within 1 week. Don't mind that thing on the right. But now that this is the audience you created, and now you get to combine it with all of the targeting data we have. So you can look at people in terms of what operating system they're running. You can think about when they're seeing the ad, if they're on Wi-Fi or not. And you can start doing all the things you might have started to discover by looking at your insights, like the age ranges that are relevant to you, the gender that's relevant, the languages they speak, and lots of other things that are here. And I encourage you to just start browsing through. Like in the interests tabs here, you can see that there's tons and tons of interesting stuff, like movies, like they like anime, do they like Bollywood? You can you can find a lot of really interesting things here. And you should marry that as much as you can with what you know about your own people. The more you know and the more we know, the more things go together, I guess. I thought I had a catchphrase there. Anyway, but then again, if all you've done is done Activate app, and you haven't had time to think about this, but there is something you need to accomplish, you just know something at a very high level that you want to reach some specific thing that we can provide for you out of the set of people who have installed your app. We have this one checkbox here that can just sort of simplify everything, and that is to target people who have installed your app. And the caveat there is that you have to have added that line of code at the beginning that I talked about Activate app, because that's how we know. And that's about it. Bid for clicks, place your order, and you're off to the races. Sorry, I'm spending your own money. Yeah, okay. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the slides now. So I talked about a few things there, and I'll try and move fast now. There are a few best practices that you should keep in mind when you're doing all this. When you're creating your ad, consider things with immediate redemption. And put things like prices and special offers into your creative. We've seen this work really well. You want a call to action, and you want copy that aligns with the goal you're trying to achieve. And always, if you can, show a picture of a mobile device, show a picture of the in-app experience so that the people you're trying to reach know what they're about to tap and see what they're going to do. Nobody likes surprises. Targeting, you want to use custom audiences that came from your mobile app. If you've been collecting data, use the mobile advertising ideas you have. Use what you've got. don't let me tell you that our infrastructure is the only way to do this. If you have people on your team that are good with data, use them. You can use the data you have. Lastly, when you're ready to think about scale, consider using a preferred marketing developer and a mobile measurement partner. Because these people are experts at doing all of this. The PMDs know how to buy lots and lots of ads and rotate through different creatives to find the things that work well. And they've gotten this down to almost to a science. And the mobile measurement partners have a lot of knowledge about how lots of other apps in the industry are measuring things, and they can really help you find the value that you might not know is already there. Now it's Robbie's turn.
Cool. So I'm sure you were all wondering when I was going to cover other engagement options. So when you're thinking about email as an engagement option, it's important to remember the number of steps a user has to take before taking an action. The median open rate on marketing emails is 17%. The median click-through rate is 2%. This makes email great for outbound communication, but not nearly as good for actions and conversions. As a result, most marketers use email for longer form messages that they want to get in front of the users. But what about push? Push is also a really popular option, and deservedly so, because it's a direct form of communication with your users. And it's also highly effective, in large part because 70% of all app users have push notifications turned on. But you have to be careful with push notifications, because the major reason users turn them off is they have this fear of bombardment. In other words, they're afraid that developers are going to abuse that privilege. So you have to walk a fine line between using this great, effective channel and not overwhelming your users. If you want to use these options, Parse has some great solutions for you. If you want to do engagement emails, you can use Parse background jobs. It also does other scheduled tasks. And if you want to do push, they also have push capabilities that allow you to do everything from automated segmentation to geolocation push to time-sensitive release. And on the back end, you can use Parse analytics to look at the effectiveness of your push campaigns and also deep dive on how to make your push campaigns even more effective. But I want to be clear. We don't view all these engagement options as zero-sum. In fact, we believe that if you understand all the different engagement options and how they complement each other, it will make your engagement strategy even more effective. In fact, one recent study found that consumers were 41% more likely to make a purchase when mobile messaging was part of an orchestrated campaign across time and across channels. In other words, a multi-channel approach is often the best approach. And I want to leave you with one final thought, and that's that engagement is all about driving incremental profitability. There are a bunch of headlines behind me, and they talk to the same important trend that developers are facing. We still get talked to all the time about CPI, but what developers should really care about is LTV. And that's because at the end of the day, that's what's most important to them, not user acquisition costs. And engagement ads are part of this exact same trend. Early adopters of engagement are going to benefit. And they're going to benefit because they're aligning their marketing with their true objective, which is incremental profitability. And with that, we're going to take some questions.
Hey, we have mics here, so please raise your hand and we'll bring it to you.
Hey, so in terms of engagement ads, can those actually be triggered via the API? For example, I have for example, you have a user that's like reading a book, and then they stop reading the book after like 5 days or something like that, and you want that particular user to come back to that specific book and that specific page. Could basically the creative and so on be just sort of populated via the API?
So, yes.
Okay.
We don't provide, for privacy reasons, we don't let you go direct back to one-to-one on people. But we do have an ads API. All of the things you can do through our interfaces, or basically the way third parties or the marketing, the PMDs work with our system is they use our API, and you can use that to create an ad that has very, very specific directed content, and then attach a custom audience to it. And then as people perform these actions, you can either do it with our role-based system, or you could just start you hit the custom audience API and start adding those identifiers in directly.
Hi. How will the anonymous login impact engagement ads? Is there any way to combine them?
So I have to check. But you could imagine that, so I don't think we're logging anything directly from the anonymous login, but in your app, when an anonymous login occurs, you could just log an event right there and then target based on that. Or exclude, include, whatever makes sense.
How does it's very powerful, definitely, to use App Insight through events to do re-engagement. How about the data ownership in terms of if an app sends events over to Facebook, what kind of access does Facebook have to those data, and would Facebook use that for other purposes other than just serving the ads?
We don't. It's your data, right? And you're using it to combine with the only reason we have it on a service is so that you can use it to target your own people.
So events are a huge pain in the butt because there are so many different services that want them.
Yeah.
Every single ad network, including you guys. So I don't know if this is true. Maybe it is. Do you guys, with the preferred measurement partners, does that mean I can use events, for instance, in mixed panel localytics, et cetera, to do this kind of custom audience development and have it work the same way, or do I still have to fire the Facebook events? It just seems like it's like, imagine every time I log an event, I have 6 different ad networks, including you guys, and now I have to send the same event to 7 different places. It's bad for user experience and a lot of other things too. I'd like to be able to manage that on our own. Does that work now or not?
Well, it depends on what your MMP supports. Fundamentally, yeah, it could work. Okay. Right? They could be sending those. They could be relaying those same events to us. They could also do it. So they could be relaying the events to us, and we could do the rule-based events like we were talking about. Or if they're really savvy, they can be hitting the custom audience API directly, and they can be adding and removing people on the fly based on whatever system they got.
Earlier, you mentioned something about like once we send audience information, you have some sort of window, and you'd be able to keep them updated without us adding or removing them. And I think that was about when things started to drop. So could you explain that again?
Yeah. So there's a couple. When you're creating one of these audiences, you get to choose the criteria for the event that passes the test, and then basically a retention window of how long a person who comes into that set should stay in the set. And we let you decide that based on number of days, up to from 1 to 180.
What are the differences between this and Power Editor?
What do you mean? The
in terms of like targeting specific people based on like the UDID or whatever the advertising one's called now.
Yeah, so Power Editor and CreateFlow, like they're just interfaces onto all of this stuff, right? Like, it's just one of the tools that you can use to create ads if you like, or you can use CreateFlow, or you can use the API, or you can use a third-party tool.
Hello.
Where am I looking?
I'm over here.
Hi.
With these ads, are you allowed to advertise your experiences as a programmer in another app? As in, like, can I promote my Instagram page to open up in an app through these ads, or YouTube channel with your apps, or because I'm not the developer, will the ads not work?
You could create an ad targeting YouTube, but you're not going to have their data to work with, right? So if you it's a URL, right? And so if you put YouTube:// yeah, you can open up in the app, but you're not going to know. YouTube is a bad example because everyone has it installed, basically. But for a lot of other apps, you're not going to know who has the app and not. And depending on how and when you're reaching people who don't have the app, you're basically paying for installs for that other company, and great. But that might not be in your interest, right?
Hey, are these re-engagement ads supported on the mobile ad network, the new network?
Yes.
Another question. Well, it doesn't.
So do the deep links and the apps, do those need to be whitelisted with Facebook, or how does that work about the content that's deep buried inside those apps? Do you guys do any content verification of those whitelisted apps that get the deep linking, or anyone can do it?
Anyone. We can do anything, yeah. I mean, to be fair, like, we do have, like, a variety of, like, spam control and other systems that we use on the web that do apply on the mobile web too, on mobile apps too. And but it wouldn't be scalable for us to try and have a whitelist, and who says what is legit anyway, right? Someone over here.
Hey, will I get the same demographic metrics and geographic metrics for events that are triggered by anonymous users? I know earlier you mentioned that I can retarget anonymous users, but I wasn't sure if we get the same quality of data coming back.
Yeah, so maybe I didn't make that clear. When you log an app event, even if you don't have login at all, right? If you don't have, even without the login, if you are logging these app events, we're able to correlate them back. But this is, we just can't, we're not going to give it back to you who these people are specifically, but you can reach them.
Cool. Well, thanks so much. We'll be in the garage afterwards if you want to come talk to us.
Yeah.
Thank you.